Good evening from Swansea, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. And joining me today as the co-host of the show, Mr. Clark Taylor. How are you, Clark?
What's going on, my friend? I'm doing well. We're all back home. What a week it's been of wrestling top to bottom. I think it's good for the industry across the board. I mean, I'm still floating basically. You know, I laughed this morning. I think I texted you. I was like, so we're going to go to the Superstore first, then we'll do lunch at the hotel, and then we'll shower, and then get the Uber to the show at 3:00, right? And I was like, oh, wait, no, it's real life again. Yeah, hard to quantify how much fun this week was, man.
Oh, absolutely. It was a blast. We got the Take It to the Table vlog coming out with all our experiences and all of that good stuff in the next few days on the Wrestling Republic YouTube channel. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. But today, we've got a lot to talk about on a day where Sanada has defeated Kazuchika Okada and New Japan Pro Wrestling's Akira Genesis show to become the new IWGP Heavyweight Champion in a thing which just shocked us all. I didn't see it coming at all. Mercedes Moné at the same event defended her Women's Championship against Kairi and Azumi. And then after the match, I believe they set up a new match between Mercedes Moné and Azumi going forward. So we'll have more on that, and check WrestlingRepublic.com for details. And finally, Dana White is denied a possible crossover event between the UFC and the WWE. And I think, Clark, you can agree that that is certainly not something they should do.
No, at least not right away. Maybe down the road, or like a co-promoted deal similar to what happened almost organically with the card that we saw Triple H and Stephanie and Nick Khan attend after Money in the Bank. Walk across the street from the MGM to Mandalay Bay, and then all of a sudden you're at the fights, some sort of cross promotion, that maybe an International Fight Week type of a premium live event card might make sense. But
that to me is the obvious decision.
To put an octagon and a squared circle in the same building at the same time for the same show, I think logistically is a nightmare.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But before I introduce our other two guests for today, very quickly first, we're going to have a quick appearance from Soul, because there's a lot of confusion going on about why does Soul still have hair. So I'm going to pass it to Soul, and Soul, you can explain to us what the situation is.
Well, of course, big man, I'm always going to explain. But, I mean, first of all, I got to say, it's kind of chilly in here, isn't it? I mean, Jesus Christ.
Baby.
God, I'm feeling the chill now. Thank God I picked summertime to do this. But, hey, look, it's done. You can calm down now, for God's sake. Shut your holes, Wrestling Republic Universe. It's done. All right? We over. We done. We cool. You going to piss off? Yeah.
So we'll also be making a donate. We'll Wrestling Republic, all of us, use donation to the V Foundation and Connor's Cure, because we had talked about donating to Locks of Love. Looked into it. It didn't exactly work out while we were in town, but we'll also make that charity donation as well, because that's key too, right? Get that out of the way in the best way possible, because it's a great foundation, and so everybody wins. And also, if you're asking me, Soul, it looks great.
It absolutely does.
I'm saving money on shampoo now, so I'm happy with that. I'm saving money on the shampoo. But, I'll leave you guys go on, do your dailies. Allison, Clark, good seeing you again in WrestleMania. It was fun as hell. Savannah, thank you yourself for Billy Dixon on GCW. Having that guest was amazing. Finally, Ignacio, you still suck, prick. See you guys later.
Well, there we are. But, guys, let's get right into the show now. Firstly, joining us today, as Soul introduced, Ignacio Pinalez. How are you today, Ignacio?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. We had a lot of, I know, been off the show for a while, but a lot of exciting stuff happening. I'm glad to be back on. That way I can educate you guys again on how wrestling's supposed to be. So.
Oh, wow. And also joining us for the first time ever, Savannah Gall. How are you, Savannah?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here with you guys for the first time, doing all the broadcasting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It is great to have you on, and we've got a lot to talk about here today, guys. But firstly, let's talk about the WWE draft. So, for those of you guys who do not know, last night on SmackDown, Triple H opened the show and came. Not sorry, he didn't open the show. He came in about an hour into the show and came out and announced the WWE draft. There was a lot of speculation of what he was going to talk about. Was he going to address the Vince back in creative movement? The Vince being back in creative and the Fire Vince movement? Or was he just going to completely ignore it? And of course, he completely ignored it. And that wasn't too surprising, because why would he have acknowledged it at the end of the day? But yeah, it was announced a WWE draft is going to happen, but we're still none the wiser in terms of who is in charge of WWE Creative. I know a lot of talent in the company are confused who they're meant to go to about everything. I mean, Triple H is who they're being told they're meant to go to about it all. But Vince was in the chair on Monday. It is a very confusing mess going on at the minute. Clark, what are your thoughts on it all?
It's mind-numbing to me. After Monday's speech, which in the moment felt so great, what we found out after wasn't quite what we were hearing at the time. To see Friday be, and I used the word in the group chat, Ben, cop out. This was a gloss over. This was an opportunity to once again reassure everyone about the state of the creative situation and all of that. And we had a draft announcement. And, we often get on Tony Khan for it's the biggest announcement ever, whatever, monumental announcement and all the phraseology and all of that. This was a whiff, I thought, as far as, we see a draft a year and complain about it before, during, and after every time. So at the end of the day, I just wish he would have said a bit more. Triple H is always great on the microphone. It wasn't a talent issue.
Yeah.
This was just makes you more nervous. And 21 billion or not, just weathering the storm by saying that by nature of the sale isn't enough. And you got to keep on this roll that they've been on the last year, because there's been some amazing storytelling. And yeah, I want much to be desired still.
I mean, the one thing I will say in defense of Triple H is it wasn't announced as a big announcement or a major announcement or anything like that. It really was just promoted as Triple H will be there to address the WWE universe. So it is a little different to the Tony Khan thing. But yeah, Ignacio, I'll pass it to you first. What were your thoughts on the return of the WWE draft?
Well, bro, I just think it's a concept that when so they're trying to present wrestling or WWE as a quasi sports entertainment or sports product, and I think the draft is a good concept. I've always thought it's a good concept, but the thing is they haven't executed it very well in a very, very long time, probably since maybe the first or second one they did back in the mid 2000s. But I think if they actually keep the rosters exclusive away from each other, and if they actually keep the titles exclusive, for example, US title on Raw and Intercontinental title on SmackDown, and maybe separate the tag team titles eventually, and if they separate I don't think they should separate the WWE title, but the other titles, yes. But if they keep the wrestlers exclusive to their specific brands and there's no crossover, and find a way to integrate NXT into their product throughout the year, not just during the draft season when they draft people from NXT, I think can be very good. And I think a way they can do that with NXT is probably incorporate some type of ranking system. I brought this up on Take It to the Table before, but maybe have a top 15, top 20, and then the guys at the bottom rung of that ranking system, let's say it's Chad Gable and Dolph Ziggler, for example, they lose, then they have to go back down to the NXT, which would be the minor leagues like AAA and baseball or whatever. And now they have to work their way up through NXT to get back to the main roster again. I think if they did something like that, it would make things a little bit more interesting, kind of like the Premier League in soccer, if you want to compare it to that.
Yeah.
And then if they actually have general managers and commissioners, like Adam Pearce has been in that position, but he's in both in Raw and SmackDown. Like every organization, sport has like an authority figure that is kind of like that larger than life character that everybody either likes or hates. Like in football, it's like Jerry Jones, right? In UFC, it's Dana White, right? So, like the authority figure storyline, the authority figure doesn't necessarily have to be a part of a storyline. They don't have to be a heel like the old Mr. McMahon character. But I like knowing that it makes it more legitimate looking when you have a authority figure that makes matches, makes decisions based on the brand. They don't necessarily have to be a part of a storyline. So I think the draft concept can work. It just has to be executed, well.
Yeah, and it's a great point you made there. And also, I mean, every superstar this year is going to be eligible for the draft, which was quite interesting when Triple H said that. It doesn't mean all of them are going to be drafted, but it means all of them could be drafted. But I do love that point, especially the relegation and promotion aspect with NXT, like you stated. But Savannah, I'll go to you next. What are your thoughts on the WWE draft being announced, and also Vince McMahon returning to creative, but them seemingly not acknowledging it, and the talent backstage not knowing who they're meant to be listening to and reporting to?
So I'm going to start off with the draft. I agree with everything Ignacio says. My concern is the potential of the factions breaking up, going to different brands. Are they going to keep the groups like the Judgment Day or Hit Row together, or are they going to separate them between the two different brands? Because you saw that with the New Day where they tried to split them up. So as far as that, and then as I know the last draft they did, Charlotte and Becky went to opposite brands and they had to switch the titles. So are we going to see that again with, Bianca and Rhea? And then as far as creative is concerned, I agree. It's very confusing to determine, who's exactly in charge of creative. You can tell what the product is. This a Triple H product, or is this a Vince McMahon product? Me personally, with everything going on, it didn't feel really Raw after WrestleMania-ish with everything going on. So I'm looking forward to getting more information and getting a clear understanding of who exactly is in charge.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned possible people who could be split up in the draft. One name which is going, one tag team which is being, a lot of people are speculating, are going to be split up because of how they've been booked recently is the Street Profits, with Montez Ford getting a lot of big singles victories. No. Clark, do you think they're going to split them up?
I hope not. No. And if they do, I hope they do it the same way that they did with the New Day, where they're still friends and a team. They're just on different shows. I don't need to see Doc and Ford have a rivalry. Their friendship is so genuine. They perform so well together as a tag team. I think it's actually unfair they're overlooked. I think they're on the same level as the Usos. I think they're on the same level as, heck, we threw together 2 single superstars for a main event match at WrestleMania this year. Kevin and Sammy, they're not a team. It's not like that, right? You don't get 2 talents as good as Ford and Dawkins to come along as a tag team very often. And I think it hurts the tag team division as a whole to split them. I wholeheartedly understand maybe Ford with the singles run. That makes sense on paper. But I think you can do that in a way where you don't have to split them and have them have a rivalry with each other, because I think it's unfair to both talents, the work that they've put in as a tag team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I 100% agree with you there. At the same time, I really do think Montez Ford could be a world champion, but I don't see why You can't do it with Angelo Dawkins at his side, truthfully. Numero 1 Superfly is here in the comments asking, will the draft find some way to basically bring a world championship back to Raw or force Roman to vacate the WWE championship? We've spoken about this quite often now. There needs to be 2 champions if you're going to have 2 big TV shows. If the champion's not going to regularly appear, they try to elevate the United States Championship throughout this year, and they have done it. They made it feel a lot more important than it did a year ago. However, even still, it does not feel as important as a World Championship, and that, as a result of that, makes networks perhaps potentially slightly unhappy. But Ignacio, I'm going to pass it to you first. Do you think that, realistically speaking, they need to introduce a new World Championship, or how would you get the title off of Roman Reigns in a way where he only has one of them?
Well, I think, my personal opinion is I think they should only have one title and just have them go intermittently back and forth to each brand, because I think that makes the World Championship, the title, more important, more legitimate. But if they were going to do it, actually take the title off him, you see, let's say Roman faces Cody again for the title, and they say, well, only one's title on the line, and then Cody defeats Roman for the Universal title or whatever. That kind of takes some of the luster off of Roman's title reign, because he's already lost and he's been undefeated for so long, 900 plus days now. So the next person to beat him, it's not going to be as special. So I just think they should have one title and have the champion, maybe concentrate sometimes on SmackDown and Raw and go back. And that it's going to put more emphasis on the U.S. title and the Intercontinental title, because it's going to make them feel bigger. Because if you have top guys going for U.S. title, Intercontinental title after Gunther and after Austin Theory or whoever the champions are at the time, it makes the championships more special, and it can even elevate those titles to where they can main event pay-per-views in a situation where Roman is not going to be available, or where Roman's not going to be a part of the card. It's just convincing the fan base that these titles are legitimate and can be as important as the world title. But if you're going to get a title off of Roman, you're going to have to do something very creative to legitimize it. For an example, I heard somewhere that the original plan, I think it might have been on Conan's podcast or another one, but an idea for them to take one of the titles off of Roman back at Clash at the Castle was they were going to have Austin Theory cash in the middle of the match and then pin McIntyre and have him walk away with both titles. But then Paul Heyman come back the next night on Raw and say, hey, well, the Money in the Bank cash-in's only for one of the titles, not 2. So you pinned you pinned McIntyre for the Universal title, but Roman's taking back the WWE title. They would have to come up with something like that, because like I said, if you have Cody beat Roman for one of the titles or what have you, it's just kind of takes some of the luster off the whole title reign and everything, because the next person, let's say Sami Zayn beats him for the WWE title next, it just takes some of the luster off of it because he's already been beaten,
Yeah.
I 100% see that, and that was one of the big issues that I had with that idea. Even the Money in the Bank idea, I still thought that it kind of just took a little something off Roman Reigns as well. Yeah. Wouldn't he go back for that championship? Which is why I personally would not mind it if they really do just in the draft. Roman, you're taking both titles to one show. On the other show, we're introducing a new title, as I don't think there's realistically a way to take one of the titles off him, and maybe you merge those 2 titles and make one new championship belt as well. But what about you, Savannah? How would you deal with this entire situation where both networks want a champion at the end of the day?
It goes back to the whole draft thing. Well, what's the whole point of the draft if you're playing on not just the world titles, but you also got the tag team titles? What's the whole point of having the draft if you're going to wind up merging the titles anyway? And then if you want to keep both titles on Roman and have him go back and forth between the brands. Well, who's strong enough now to challenge Roman? And for right now, I don't see anybody else. I still feel like this story with him and Cody Rhodes isn't over. And so I foresee something. If he were to drop the titles, I would see something possibly at SummerSlam. I know Cody was trying to introduce another title that could possibly be integrated into a new title for one of the brands, but I mean, it's just a matter of like who WWE wants to build up to challenge Roman, and no, not just Cody, but you also have Austin Theory. So I mean, it's just a matter of like waiting to see what's going to happen.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, we're now going to move on to the next topic. And very rarely in wrestling at this point in time do I hear a story which I should know the details about it, and I don't know the details about it. But one story came out yesterday that said Sky Blue has signed a deal with All Elite Wrestling. And I thought she was already signed. It absolutely shocked me when I saw this. And I wrote a piece on it. I was like, what? Tony Khan's just announced she's just signed? I thought she's been signed for, months and months now. But apparently she was on a developmental style deal before, and that's what it was. But yes, she's now officially All Elite, and this is a big get for AEW, especially during this Outsiders versus original storyline. Clark, what are your thoughts on it all, and what are your thoughts on Sky Blue signing with All Elite Wrestling?
She's from my hometown of Chicago. I'm a huge Sky Blue fan, so I'm just so happy for her to be signed. I think it's awesome. She's deserved it. Long time coming. She was under, I believe, a similar developmental deal as Abaddon was at one point before she had became All Elite. Sky was in the system, but she wasn't technically considered a full AEW employee, essentially signing short-term contracts over the course of years, which is one of the coolest things, and to put in that work and have it pay off like this and be All Elite is awesome for Sky Blue. I love it. And I think she's an underrated talent and has been for a long time. And I really hope that this means that we'll get to see a Sky Blue push, because I've seen her wrestle live 3 times at AEW events before she was signed. And every single time she put someone else over and looked incredible bell to bell.
Well, what about you, Savannah? What are your thoughts on Sky Blue signing with All Elite Wrestling?
I feel like full-time she should have been signed. I kind of see what Tony Khan is doing as far as a developmental. I think with the fact that Ring of Honor is now in the picture, she may be being built to be on the Ring of Honor's women's roster and trying to take Athena's championship. Not just Sky Blue, Lila Gray. I think she was on a similar contract along with Abaddon. And then another name that you guys might want to pay attention to is Ashley D'Amboise. She's low-key working AEW and Ring of Honor. So it's just a matter of when she's going to be debuting on the main event television and stuff like that. So I think it's a good signing as far as Sky Blue. So I'm curious, especially with Ring of Honor, to see where they're going to go with this.
Absolutely, and that is a name which we should all be keeping and looking out for in the next upcoming few months. But Ignacio, I actually want to talk to you and ask you about the Outsiders versus the original storyline currently going on in AEW, and what your thoughts on this entire storyline so far. have been, because as I've spoken about on a few shows, I've not been a big fan of it so far.
It's garbage. It's garbage. It's ridiculous. It's, bro, they got a lot of talented girls on that roster, but it's just like Tony doesn't know what to do. And I feel bad for him, but like everybody they bring in, like Paige, Tony Storm, all these talented people that came from WWE, and especially Paige, because she was around there for so long, she might, I figured she might have more of a creative mindset, and maybe she thinks what she's doing right now is good, but it's not. And that division it's very poorly booked, very poorly run, and I think it's one of the Achilles heels of AEW, because all those girls on there, they have good matches once in a while, like Jamie Hayter, Serena Deeb, who's been off TV. Maybe she had an injury, but as far as character development wise, they're so uber unentertaining, bro. It's bad TV, I think, right now. And even if Tony took all his time and money he could to try to invest in getting Mercedes Moné, which I think they should do, who's to say that she's going to come in and how they're going to book her unless she has some say, because she is a smart woman. Sasha Banks is Mercedes Moné. She would be able to tell Tony, or be able to step up and say, no, I don't want to do that. And is Tony going to allow that? No, I don't think so. It's really bad the way they're booking that division, because they got so much talent. And I like, for example, like Jade Cargill, she's been on this undefeated streak for 2 years now, but who is she really beating? Why isn't she making contact or having any contact with like Britt Baker and, Thunder Rosa, or, I know she's on the shelf, but like stars, that people that have been in the main card, how come she hasn't been in a program with like I said, like with Britt Baker, people have been on top of the card, or Tony Storm, or these other girls, like stars, people that can help her in the ring, develop her skills, and also develop a program that can make this division interesting.
Yeah, Jade Cargill is certainly an interesting one, because she has killed it over the last almost a couple of years now.
Yeah.
She's been phenomenal, and her win streak just almost isn't being acknowledged enough and at a higher level.
I agree. I think they're not doing enough, Ben. Ignacio, I really like what you said there. The only one thing that I would like slightly disagree with is I actually don't even think it's Jade's fault, because she has wrestled. She's wrestled the big names. It's the program. She hasn't had the program. But I would argue that TBS belt is as over as the women's world belt has been since the beginning, especially in the arena. When you hear Jade's music hit, it explodes every time.
Is that because of the title and the championship reign, or is that because of just how big the star?
I think that's because of Jade. I think it's Jade. Yeah. But at the same time, I think the way that she's established and made that TBS belt so legit. I mean, to me, the TBS belt has been better handled with Jade than the TNT belt. Not because I don't like multiple title changes. I actually do. I don't mind if you hot potato every now and again. I don't mind, because in the arena, experience wise, the pop for a title change is always huge. But when it's time to keep the title on someone that's as talented as Jade Cargill, or as dominant as Jade Cargill, and charismatic as well, it makes sense. It's same reason I think Roman went over night 2 of Mania. To be completely honest, you can't give that away just yet, because the building was already full. And if you can fill another one and make people want to see Cody take it again, stuff like that, that's promotional wizardry, right? And you don't always have to send everyone home happy. You just have to fill the stadium.
That is 100% true. But as long as you continue after that point to continue filling it, you don't want them and not want to come to an event again, but you want to send them home happy, but maybe not happy with the outcome. Like that's the point you're making, and that's great
distinction. Yes.
We got Melissa in the chat. Hello, Melissa. And we're going to move on now to our final topic of the day, but it is quite a big one. And that is Alex Pajida's comments about Israel Adesanya heading into UFC 287. And you might be asking, why are we talking about UFC on a professional wrestling podcast? Well, the reason for it is that professional wrestling was brought into it in the press conference last night, where Alex Fajita he basically used going to WWE as an insult. He was talking about somebody got asked about the WWE and UFC merger, because of course WWE is now being bought by Endeavor and they're being merged with UFC as one promotion. One company, two promotions. That's a clear difference. My mistake there. But Alex Fajita said, the way I see it is it's a place for Adesanya, right? Because after this fight, he's already lost at light heavyweight, so it's a place for him to go. So he is using going to WWE as an insult, despite the fact now that, WWE is now their partner. It's not a great look for WWE, this, and it's also not particularly a great look for Dana White, because Dana White, I don't know if any of you guys saw when he did a bit of a Q&A yesterday, everyone's asking him, is UFC going to be scripted now? It's like, so he's being asked that. WWE's being used as an insult. It's not particularly great for UFC or WWE on the surface level. Now, Endeavor are convinced that this is the right move. They're absolutely convinced that business-wise, this is going to be a fantastic strategy long-term. However, on the surface, for the time being, it doesn't look great for either of them. Clark, I know you're a big UFC fan, a big MMA guy, and a big professional wrestling guy. What are your thoughts on all of this?
I loved the press conference just because that was pro wrestling. And the irony of it is it was pro wrestling in and of itself. It was perfect for the build. Obviously, these two hate each other and they have history, monster history, right? It's the one boogeyman for Israel Adesanya in his whole career. The jab at professional wrestling as the guy that carries the belt, I don't know if that was the right move for Pajeda, but I think it's funny for sure. I mean, if you're Dana White and Ari Emanuel, you probably don't like your 185-pound champion knocking your sister business at one of your biggest press conferences of the year. But it was still as entertaining as it gets, and it was pro wrestling at the end of the day. In that moment, yes, when they get inside the cage, it's sanctioned by the Athletic Commission. It's mixed martial arts again. That's different. It won't be predetermined or booked that way throughout ever. That's not right. They're two different animals across the board. In a roundabout way, I think it's positive for the WWE that Pajeda mentioned him in the press conference. It's just more promotion, and the way that they, $20 million in sponsorship revenue this weekend. The most financially successful Mania ever, and it was ironic because the internet complained about some of the results, but they made the most money they ever did in the history of the company over that weekend. That's hard to deny. And with what's ahead of us in AEW coming into the space, there's never been a better time to be in the pro wrestling industry than right now. Because not just we're talking about it, but the mainstream media is talking about it too. Everyone's talking about it.
They absolutely are. I still can't get my head around it. I'm not going to be able to get my head around it as more and more news comes out about this every day. I'm like, wait, what? But Savannah, I'm going to take this to you now. What are your thoughts on this, this deal? And do you think that it would be good for both WWE and UFC? Or do you think that it's perhaps conflict in interests?
So I feel like WWE and UFC have been going back and forth for years. I feel like Alex isn't the first one to take a jab at WWE on behalf of UFC. Once this announcement has dropped, even Conor McGregor, I don't know if anybody was paying attention, like he was going back and forth with Paul Heyman. Conor had tweeted a picture of himself holding a UFC belt and a WWE belt and tweeted #inevitable. And then Paul Heyman responded with calling him a Roman Reigns wannabe. And then I don't want to say that UFC is going to go as far as being scripted. I feel like the merger is okay, but business-wise, but I don't want to see any lanes being crossed as far as UFC and WWE, because like one is scripted and one isn't.
Two different entities. I'm with you there, Savannah, for sure. That's a great call. Yeah, they're sister companies at this point, right? But they're two different entities. Yeah, it's an outstanding point.
You don't want to see those lines divided, and that's similar to what Dana White actually said when he was being asked about it all. People were saying to him, "Is it going to be scripted now?" He was like, "Yes, we're partnered, but we're not going to see any crossovers. There's going to be just as many crossovers as there were before," which basically means none, other than, for WWE stars at a UFC event, they're shown on camera, and vice versa. I think that's as much as we're going to see about it. But Ignacio, I have a feeling you might have some strong feelings about this deal and all of it in general. So I'm going to pass it to you now.
Well, I mean, that I think it's I think if anybody benefits for it more, it'd be probably WWE more than UFC, because WWE is getting more of the mainstream press involved because now of their involvement with UFC. But I think to the point or the topic you were mentioning a little bit ago, I think with Conor McGregor, like he was kind of just having fun with the whole situation, because I think maybe he has more of a chance or has more interest in being part of WWE than anything else. I wouldn't doubt that WWE's reached out to him more than once or twice a year for the past 5 or 6 years, or however long they've suspected that McGregor's going to be making appearance in WWE. So I think in his part, he was having fun with it. And this other individual, I haven't watched UFC, really been a fan since UFC like 12 or something. So the other guy that the press conference that making those comments, I think he was just trying to diminish WWE. And I think that was the problem, is that unless they rein these guys in, you're going to see more of those shots that are derogatory in nature and not having fun or trying to put over the other company. I think that's what they need to do. Now, as far as how I feel about the whole situation, I would have liked to see Vince take the company private, and maybe they could have gotten away with probably more towing the line, edgier storylines and so forth, with them not being a public company anymore. But I don't think it's a complete disaster. Who knows what the future holds? But I think for WWE and the wrestling business, this is absolutely a good thing. Absolutely a good thing that they're a part of this now conglomerate of sports and entertainment. And I agree with you, Ben, as far as like integration with both. The only time they're going to be integrated is, like you said, when you see superstars on UFC of sporting events, or maybe WWE stars doing like a weekend show, like for example, like Friday night SmackDown in the same city, Las Vegas, where the next night they're going to have a UFC pay-per-view. You know what I mean? And then they do meet and greets or something like that, which I think is a good thing. So I think overall it's a good thing. I'm not negative about it. It's if they leave both entities alone, if they let WWE people run WWE and they let UFC people run UFC, I think they'll both be fine. It'll probably be benefit to both worlds.
Yeah, of course. And we've seen since Endeavor purchased UFC quite a few years ago now, that they've let Dana White do what Dana White wants to do, and Dana White has praised them publicly for that. And of course, Nick Khan will be in that same role for WWE. They've said this. They said that Nick Khan will be what Dana White is to UFC to WWE. So I think I'm not worried too much about how they're going to run the business. But yes, just from a mainstream media point, I think a lot of people are seeing a lot of headlines. But maybe once the dust settles, people will be a bit calmer.
Well, look. Well, first of all, look. If people think that UFC, I'm not saying scripted like produced like WWE is, but if people don't think that there's been UFC fights that have been fixed or what have you,
that's a big claim, Ignacio. I don't think
they are fucking delusional.
Not fixed.
I know at least
not fixed.
At least I don't know. I don't know if it was John McCarthy's book or somewhere where they know if at least, and this was the early days of the UFC. I think it was a fight between Don Fry and the fighter. I can't mention off the top of my head. I would have to go back and look, and
would it have been Coleman?
I don't know. Not Mark Coleman.
Kevin Randleman.
I think it was when he won the Ultimate, but they know at least Don Fry, the camp
was
of
that Shamrock.
No, it wasn't Shamrock. No, it was an undercard guy. It wasn't the headliner, but it was during a tournament where they asked the guy to lay back of Don Fry, so Don Fry can fight. It was either Mark Coleman or somebody in the finals.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was John McCarthy that confirmed that in his book, but it was somewhere. You just look it up and you'd be able to find it. But I mean, even in boxing, if people think that fights haven't been fixed or whatever for the purpose of having another fight or whatever with the same two combatants, they're fucking delusional. All right, so just get over
boxing. It's definitely happened. I can confirm that myself. Yeah, boxing, it happens a lot more. The UFC early days.
The first UFC.
That's
UFC,
very possible.
The whole first UFC tournament was.
I would say since 40
promoted was just basically a promotion tool for Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and that's it, right? So
absolutely. I would say 40 and beyond, though, since then they've been State Athletic Commission sanctioned in every one. You got Mark Ratner overlooking it, who's probably the most, I guess, level-headed or he has the most sterling reputation of any Athletic Commission executive as far as making sure that you can't fix stuff. And his involvement, I would say it's been a long time since there was even the possibility of a fight being fixed in the UFC, and they'll avoid that for forever, I think, from here on out.
Yeah, I mean, you would know more than I do, of course.
Oh, only on that one, I'm like, Ratner his reputation is I mean, because they do the big they're investigating the hand wraps and the, right? Like Cormier grabbing the towel to make weight in California doesn't happen in Nevada. Everyone's gotten better because of the nature of Nevada, right? Yeah. But yeah, I think I totally hear where you're coming from, because early UFC, yes, absolutely. You're spot on, and there was probably some shady business done there, but it's been long enough. I think that's kind of a footnote of the past, right?
They just need to get over that. That look, bro, this is UFC, and people that ask that question, they're ignorant and they're stupid that it's going to be scripted or whatever. That this is UFC, and this is WWE, and they're two different entities and two different parts of entertainment, and that's it. But that's the kind of the point I was trying to get. But bro, don't diminish WWE. Don't diminish WWE or wrestling in general, because people from the real sports world, when they do that, they say, oh, it's fake and phony. But boxing and wrestling, MMA, whatever, I don't care if it's basketball or baseball, but fights and stuff became fixed in that kind of situation before. So you can easily attack mainstream pro sports in the same aspect, that it's been fixed
100%.
because that's been fixed to generate more revenue, to have the same fighters, the same players, the same teams play each other again, right? So that's
I was actually at dinner today, and a former boxer was serving us, and he was basically asking, I don't understand how you can enjoy wrestling, and I said, well, movies fake, and you enjoy that. So it all comes back to stuff like that at the end of the day. But let's quickly talk tonight's UFC 287 card. We have about a minute. Clark, who do you have, Gilbert Burns or George Masvidal?
I am going to take the hometown kid to pull the upset. I believe in Game Bread. I think he lands enough early unless Gilbert decides to start shooting double and single legs. That's Gilbert's only logical route to victory, but I got Masvidal. Main event. Either TKO in round 4 or decision. Main event, I'm going with Izzy.
Oh, wow.
I had to talk crap about the WWE. Izzy's going to get him 4th time's the charm, like Juan Manuel Marquez did to Manny Pacquiao only a few years ago. I think the 4th time's the charm.
Masvidal will win.
I think Behetter puts it on him early, comes out of the gates, blows his wad cardio-wise, and Izzy puts him away round 3. with maybe some spinning stuff, maybe some highlight reel quality stuff.
And he's also, Tom Al's also convinced in the comments that Israel will lose. So people are divided here. But Clark, let's see if you once again bang on with UFC predictions. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Ignacio, Savannah, and Clark for joining us here today. It's been a banger of an episode, guys. We'll be back here same time tomorrow. Actually, might be an hour earlier. For Sunday Fun Day, where we'll be doing a quiz on something or other. Thank you, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.